Welcome back, everybody. Derek Sue, your East Oakland advocate. Well, have you been watching on Fox Network Special Forces, World's Toughest Test? Well, last night it touched home with me because I remember doing this very exercise, and it was dealing with death, and not a death of somebody else, but dealing with my own. And um, writing a letter saying goodbye because um, you're going into a very dangerous situation, and so uh, I dealt with that very early on, and um, our finances. The wife that I had at the time, we had everything arranged in a way that my work and I was actually a separate identity, and so there was really very little reference to any kind of union between her and I, and that was to protect her and her son uh, from my work and being discovered. And so, anyway, uh, dealing with death. I've had to deal with death early on because my grandparents were older. My father was born into a very large family, and he was born very late in life. My On my father's side, he was number 11 out of 14 children, and so that placed my grandmother already nearing her 70s when I was but 6, 7 years old, and so and then my mother was had me much later in life. She was just short of turning 38 years old, as my half brother is 16 years my senior, and so it's interesting being born late in life. You do have to deal with death, especially of uh, your close relatives at an early age. And like I said, I've ended up dealing with death very early on in my life, uh, in the single digits. Then again, my grandfather on my mother's side passing away directly on my birthday in 1974, and so that's one of the reasons that I don't really celebrate my birthday, because it has time and time again been a recurring trauma of that death of my grandfather on my birthday, because not only did he pass away there, but also my grandmother came within hours, just a couple of hours, of dying on my birthday in 1986. And then my mother passed away suddenly in 2001, just 3 days short of my birthday. Actually, 4 days. She died on the 6th of February. And so it was very traumatic. My birthday and all the death that occurs around my birthday. And so that's one of the traumas that I've had to live with since I was very young. And let me tell you, it hurts. It's very painful uh, dealing with that. And so last night's episode on Special Forces had each of the remaining recruits. And if you've been watching, as of last night, we were down to 5 recruits, and we have only one non-athlete left, and the remainder are athletes. And so it's been quite a journey watching it, and the tests are greatly modified. Let me tell you, these are greatly modified tests uh, that these folks have gone through the challenges, and we had a very high washout because in the beginning we started with 16. Now we're down down to but five, and we had one right at the end leave because of a medical emergency, and so uh, it, if I remember, right at the very end, it got down to four, and so uh, at the end of the show, or towards the end of the show, that's when this came into play, where they were told that they would have to make the decision whether they wanted to move forward at becoming special operations personnel or leave. And but this is the time, if you were going to consider moving on, which they aren't, uh, they would have to write a letter to their loved ones, because that was their last goodbye for those folks. And I want to talk about that for a moment, because um, my grandparents, obviously, on my father's side, I didn't have an opportunity to say goodbye or ask questions or anything, because I was too young. And then my grandfather, while I had a great relationship and I had a lot of knowledge, and my grandfather taught me a lot, uh, it was expected, but you're kind of in your teenage years, and so you're starting to kind of find your own way. And but after the my grandfather's death, losing my best friend, uh, and the person who's taught me the most in life, just died. He left me, and didn't say goodbye, and so that was very hurtful. I was I would call a very angry teen for a number of years, and angry about my grandfather leaving me, and I didn't have the opportunity to say goodbye. But I had the opportunity to do that with my grandmother, but unfortunately, my grandmother and we had a language barrier. So she understood that I loved her and cared for her and everything, but it wasn't the same. And then the death in 2001, my mother suddenly, next to my birthday, uh, we knew that some her death was going to happen. We just didn't know when, because she had already previously had two strokes, and the doctors already warned us and said, when she has her next one, it's not if, it's when she had her third stroke, she would be gone before her body hit the floor. And that was literally true, because my dad found her the next morning, and she literally fell out of her slippers, and um, it was pretty sad to see, because I was alert to that, and asked to come to the house, and it was a very devastating time, because while I had been in the company of my mother just a couple of days prior to her passing, I wasn't able to express my thankfulness and for all she's done and did for me throughout my life, and brought me to this point. And when my father fell ill, and then uh, I had the opportunity in the final week prior to his passing, um, while he wasn't conscious, I was able to be there in the room, speak to him, and I believe that he did hear me, because there was you could say it was nerve movement, but I believe that it was an indication that he acknowledged what I was saying to him in my goodbye to him, and for him to not worry, and to pass uh, without feeling any guilt on anything, or feeling that he's left anything behind. So I tried to comfort him as much as possible. And that was just the day before he passed on. And so it's been very hard on me, but at least I had the opportunity of saying goodbye. And that's what I want to bring up for a lot of you folks. Have you prepared your will, a trust, and in that, that's where you have the opportunity to talk about your love and thank people for what they've done and what they meant in your life. And it's a way to have closure for a lot of folks because I had a lot of family members leave me suddenly, and so I feel an emptiness where I didn't get closure on different topics and questions. So I ask you today, what would you say to your loved ones about how thankful you are that they were in your life and for the things that they did for you? What would you say? What would you think about your wife, sister, brothers, mother, father, children? Is in the special forces for the NBA basketball player. He had 5 children, and he wrote a letter to each one of those. So that was very interesting. So if you haven't seen that episode, it was just Thursday evening. It was Special Forces World's Toughest Test on Fox Network. It comes up in the last 20 minutes of the show. And so if you're interested, go back and watch that if you can. It was a very touching, moving episode. It actually had me in tears with some of the letters and some of the things that folks said. So thank you very much for joining me today. We'll be right back.